Hey everyone, and welcome to the seventh episode of the interview series. Today I have Brandon Turner, who is a real estate investor, the VP of Growth and Communications at BiggerPockets.com, and author of the book Rental Property Investing: How to Create Wealth and Passive Income Through Smart Buy and Hold Real Estate Investing.
That's
So,
it.
thank you, Brandon, for being here today. And so the very first question is, how'd you start? How'd you begin in real estate investing?
Sure. So when I was 21, I think I was 21 years old, I was looking for a place to live. I just moved to a new area and went bowling. Do you have bowling in where
Yeah,
you're at? Okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know if that was like a thing everywhere or just where I'm at. But anyway, so we went bowling and there was a friend there and a friend's sister was there. And she said, well, it's cheaper to buy a house here than it is to rent. And so I was like, well, really? So I went and looked at the numbers and sure enough, I could actually own a house cheaper than I could rent. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do that. And so I went and bought the cheapest house I could find, and I fell in love with the idea of real estate. And so I just started buying properties, and I sold some of them. I kept some as rentals, and just kept acquiring more and more stuff.
Wow, that's so by it's sort of by chance then.
Yeah, it was kind of just an accident. I mean, I really was not looking to get into investing. I just needed a place to live, and so I bought this house, and I ended up selling it about a year later, and I made like $20,000, and that was more money that I made at my job that year. And so
Wow.
I was like, wow, there's good money to be made here. Like it was good. It was good. It was like a whole year of income for me. So I was only working minimum wage overnight, a crappy job at the time. So real estate for me was like a way out of a job, way out of having to work a day job, sitting at a desk all day. Like that stuff didn't excite me. So
Yeah. So do you think that real estate investing would be good for everyone or for all locations, or what are your thoughts on that?
yeah, that's a really good question. I think that real estate is good for everyone, but it's different for everyone. Certain
Uh,
strategies work better at different places. In my area, I could buy a really cheap, dumpy little house. And if you live in a really expensive city, that's going to be really hard to do. So you got to have a totally different strategy, no matter, depending on where you live. But I mean, pretty much every country in the world, every city in the world, you can find people who have become rich from real estate. So my advice to people is always is like, don't just listen to me on what I'm saying. Go and find somebody in your area who is successful because of real estate and just be like, hey, what did you do? How did you get there? What did and people love to brag about themselves. They love to tell, so if you offer them some coffee, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or whatever, and let them brag about themselves, they'll tell you everything you want to know.
no, that's a great idea. Just finding someone locally and just kind of mimicking what they do. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really smart. That's I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger did the same thing when he first went to California. He
Yep. I
he
think
wanted
I
to
heard
get
that too.
into real estate, so he just followed all of these real estate agents, and then yeah, that's more or less how we learned about real estate. But that's a
Yeah.
great way. So for yourself, what kind of real estate investing do you do? I mean, do you do commercial, retail? Do you buy and hold, flip? What do you like to do?
Sure. So I do a little of a lot of things, but my favorite is rental properties. I like rental properties a lot. I like the fact that let's say I flip a house. Like for example, I actually just flipped a house. I closed yesterday.
Hmm.
It took way longer than it should have, but it's done. And I'm gonna clear about $20,000 on this flip. But that's great. $20,000 is enough to buy a car, right? But chances are, and that's actually exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go buy a car with that money. But now that that's gone, that money's gone. I don't have it anymore. I'll never have it again. That 20, it'll be gone on a car that's going to be worth nothing. So flipping is nice for getting good income coming in. But for me, I like buying rental properties that if I go and buy something, then every single month I make money forever. And so it might be only a little bit of money, but the more you get, the more you start making. And so when I got started with this game of real estate, I was making a couple $100s a month, and then a few hundred more than that, and then a couple thousand. And, pretty soon I had enough that I could quit my job and never have to work again.
Mm.
And that's why I like rental properties. So yeah, typically residential. So like people's houses, whether it's a single house or maybe a 2 unit, a 3 unit, a 4 unit. And I do have a 24 unit apartment complex as well. Though I am selling that and hopefully going to buy a mobile home park. So anyway, so I do a lot of stuff.
That's interesting. I'm not sure if you follow Grant Cardone.
I
Grant
do.
Cardone. Oh, okay. So he's. Have you seen
Yeah.
his real estate show?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. Yeah, he's great. I love Grant.
Yeah, so one of the advice that he gives in his real estate show is to never, when you're looking for a deal, you should never look for a single, a place with like one door or two doors or three doors, because he's saying that's too small. You want to do something with at least 16 doors. What are
Hmm.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was actually so I was on his show at one point. I don't remember what he's got a bunch of podcast thingies out there, but like about a year ago I was on one of his shows and we argued this exact point. And I told him like, in my opinion, I mean, he's right, right? Nobody's going to become a millionaire off buying a single house. Nobody's becoming a millionaire or a billionaire off of buying a duplex or 4 unit or whatever. That's it. However, if if I was brand new to real estate and I just jumped in on a 15, 20, 50, 100 unit property like he's suggesting, in my opinion, there is a very good chance I'm going to lose that first deal. I'm going to lose money on it. In fact, almost everybody loses money on their first deal. So I'd rather have the deal be small. So if I lose money, I only lose a little bit of money versus, oh crap, I messed up. Now I just lost $400,000 of my investor's money. Like
Yeah.
I don't have the guts for that. And so I like the idea instead of exponential growth. That's what I advocate more of, which means buy one property when you started, just buy something simple and then double that the next year and then double that again. And within 5 or 6 years, you're up to that level, but you learned along the way. And what I don't like is that when people buy a single family house and then a year later, they maybe buy another house. And then a few years later, they buy another house. Like, yeah, what's that doing for them? Gives them a few $100 in cash flow? Not that much. But if you can continually learn and then continually try to double or expand what you're doing, you'll go from 0 to 100 units in no time, but you'll be prepared for it.
Yeah, that's great advice. No, I believe, or I agree with you 100%. When he said that, I was just kind of like, oh, but what if you make a big mistake? Or I always hear that your first deals aren't going to go as you plan, and so yeah, if you're going to lose money, you might as well try to minimize your loss. I
Yeah.
mean, and just kind of get your foot wet into the real estate game. But no, that's
Yeah. In fact, that's a really good topic. I'm going to write this down right now. I'm going to maybe write a blog post on this soon. Like, I love Grant Cardone. This is what it's going to be called. I love Grant Cardone, but he's wrong about this real estate strategy.
now
Yeah, I'm
that's
totally going to write this.
Yeah, no, that's well, I'm glad I was able to
Gave you the
give you the
inspiration
idea.
for this.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
So,
great.
uh,
Cool. Well, yeah.
no, that's awesome. So, and what are some things that you look for in a deal when you're out looking for houses or when you're out looking for deals? What are some
Sure.
things that you look for?
Yeah, a couple things I look for. First of all, the most important number for me, well, there's two numbers that matter more than everything in terms of the metrics. Let's talk about data here and get nerdy. I look for cash on cash return, which
Okay.
basically means what's your return on your money? Like what kind of yield is your money giving based on just the cash flow? So, for example, if I gave you $100 and you gave me back $10, that would be a 10% return. So what am I getting as a return on my investment on just the cash flow? That's the first number I care about. The second number is actually just cash flow in general per unit. So, for example, let's say I bought a duplex, 2 units.
Hmm.
I want at least $100 each of those units in my pocket.
Profit.
Of course, this profit
Okay.
after paying everything out and setting aside and saving money for future repairs and all that stuff, I want at least $100, and that's of course U.S. dollars. Set aside. Like that's my metric for what I look for. So if those two things are in agreement, then I'll probably buy a property. If I can get at least, well, so I said to say, so if I can get at least 12% on my money, which is my cash on cash return, and I can get at least $100 per month per unit, then I'll likely pursue the deal. And then other than that, I mean, I'll look for pretty much anything that qualifies.
Okay, that's interesting. So I guess the first thing would be cap rate.
Yep. Yeah. So depends. So cap rate's used a lot more in commercial investing than it is in residential, right? We like typically cap rate essentially is your return, your cash on cash return if you didn't pay any mortgage at all. So in other words, if you just paid
Uh,
all cash for property and then you got back a 10% return, your cap rate is 10,
mhm.
or you have a 10 cap. It gets a little bit more complicated when you throw in a mortgage, which all of us do. But essentially, cap rate just means what is your return if you didn't have a mortgage. So yes, cap rate and cash on cash return in my book are kind of the same thing, even though they're not. But yeah, so I just say cash on cash return because every deal I have has a mortgage.
Hmm.
So now, of course, when I'm buying larger properties, I look exclusively at the cap rate, which is just a function of your income, how much money comes in, and how much is going out. So
Yeah. No, that's great. And I guess for each property that you have, do you have I guess an exit strategy, or do you just plan to buy and hold for long term, just as your book says?
yeah, pretty much I just buy and hold for long term, but I will always sell things. In fact, a couple of my favorite properties right now I'm in process of selling. Like I mentioned earlier, my
Oh.
apartment I'm selling. Yeah, and I'm selling one of my houses. I have a house that I cash flow like $700 every month. I make really good cash flow on it. But the tenants who live there asked me if they could buy the house, and I looked at it. I gave them a number that made it worthwhile for me, and they said yes, and so they're gonna
Mm.
buy it. And so I will sell if I can take that money and put it into something greater. Like my apartment complex, I'm selling that too because I can take the profit that I have or the equity and I can dump it into something greater. It goes back to what I was saying about exponential growth earlier. I
Hmm.
don't want to just grow a little bit each year. I want to double every year or at least like significantly climb every year.
Yeah, I think in the States you guys have the rollover. It's like if you
Yeah.
have, yeah, that's key. That is
Yeah, it's
it's
really
really good.
helpful. Yeah, it's called a 1031 exchange and yeah,
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
basically not pay taxes on the profit that we make when we sell a property if we buy another one right away. And yeah, it's an interesting strategy. There's pros and cons. In fact, I was just reading an article the other day that says you shouldn't even do it. You should just pay the taxes. But I'm going to do it on these properties
Yeah, why
because I
not?
don't
I
want to pay
mean,
taxes.
yeah, exactly. If you can delay legally
Yep.
or
Yep.
avoid paying taxes legally, why not,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so
that's how I look at it.
yeah, absolutely. That is so key. For myself, I'm from Canada, and I don't think we have anything like that I know of. Or
Yeah.
maybe I'm just not informed. But for myself, I don't think we have that. And so you guys are so lucky
Yeah.
to be able to have that.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
so in terms of you're talking about your tenants, just curious about tenants. So Grant
Sure.
Cardone talks about the three T's, termites, toilets, and tenants. I
Yeah.
mean, they're very kind of things that are bothersome for real estate owners.
Yep.
Have you ever had any experience with the three T's?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, it's being a landlord is you're in an you're
Oh yeah,
you're
it's my yeah. Sorry about that.
no,
Yeah.
you're good. So yeah, so being a landlord has the downside of having to deal with people and tenants and annoying, call in the middle of the night, got their problems. But what I found is that tenants are not that hard to deal with once you learn how to. It's a skill like anything else. Like people are like, oh, I can't play the guitar because it's so hard. It's like, well, if you take lessons, you learn how to do it, you're going to be just fine. So stop complaining, right? So people are always complaining about tenants, and I'm like, well, once you learn how to do it, it's not that bad. And like I probably spend 5 hours a month, maybe max, dealing with my tenants. I have roughly 50 of them, maybe 5 hours a month. But I make thousands and thousands of dollars in income on those 5 hours. So I'm making thousands of dollars an hour for my time. Is that worth it?
Mm,
Yes. Like Grant Cardone probably spends hundreds of hours or dozens of hours a month negotiating for a large property. So we're both working.
mm.
We're guys who say don't work. So granted, I mean, I would love to be where Grant is. I would love to get there someday where I'm buying 100 or 500 unit properties. Because but then all I'm doing is I'm trade like he's trading his tenants for employees or for managers who then you got to manage as well. And
Mm.
honestly, I have an easier time managing tenants than I do managing uh, the contractors and the employees and all that. Like those people are tough to deal with. Tenants are pretty easy. So
Mm.
when I wrote the book on rental property investing, as I was writing it, I was like, man, this is going to be way longer than a normal book. So we actually divided it into two books, and I wrote the book on rental property investing, and then I co-wrote the book on managing rental properties with my wife because you
Mm.
can't do one without being able to manage them very easily. So
I
we
agree.
yeah, that's why I put a lot of emphasis on learning how to be an effective landlord. That's a whole lot easier.
Okay. For yourself, have you ever had any horror stories with I guess, in your experience of being a real estate investor?
Yeah, I mean, we've had to do a number of evictions with some crappy tenants. We had one tenant try to burn down our house when he was decided he got into drugs, stopped paying rent, and then he burnt the kitchen down. And
Whoa.
it was drama. We actually just got that fixed up, re-rented. It's fine now. But we had another tenant who went crazy, and she wouldn't let anybody in her house. She turned the electricity off, and she wouldn't leave, and stopped paying her rent. And so we had to evict her, and then she still refused to leave. And it was just a lot of drama. And anyway, we finally got in there, and there were so many cockroaches in there. I mean, just tens of thousands of them everywhere. Yeah, that was a rough experience. And then she like left like death threats on like at the house, like I will shoot you if you take my stuff. And like she was just mentally not all there. And
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that. And I don't like to scare people away, but like it's a people industry. You're dealing with people, and there's the weird people out there sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Wow, that's wow. I'm dumbfounded. I'm left speechless. Just thinking of, like, what would I do if I saw someone who, like, you go into your own property and you see thousands of cockroaches and just kind of
Yeah, but at the same time, like most of the problems we've had are from tenants that we didn't put in there in the first place, or we didn't know what we were doing. So like this one, we bought the property with her living there already. We didn't put her in. We wouldn't have allowed her to live there if I was the one putting her in. Like I wouldn't have approved her ever. But the previous owners did. So that's just a tip for people. If they're buying a property, make sure you know what the tenants are like when you're buying it. And if they're not good, plan on, set aside money knowing that you're going to have to deal with that later.
Okay, that's a great tip. And in terms of eviction, how hard is it to evict someone?
Yeah, I mean, every state's a little different, but in every area. But in my area, it's you get a lawyer involved. It costs about $1,000, maybe $2,000, and it takes about a month. Whoa. Some areas are a couple months and a couple $1,000s. Some are 6 months, and you might spend $5,000. It goes up and down a little bit depending on the state, but most states are pretty easy, and they have a pretty good process for helping landlords get them out.
Okay, well, fortunately for you, you got her out quick, I guess.
Yeah. What I actually find more helpful is what I do most of the time is I offer tenants money to leave instead of going through the process of evicting, because that's annoying to have to evict a tenant and it's thousands of dollars. So instead, I'll go offer a tenant, be like, hey, listen, Bob, this isn't working out for you. It's not working out for me. The courts are going to have to get involved, and that's going to go on your permanent record, and we don't want that. So why don't I give you part of the money I was going to give my lawyer? I was going to give my lawyer all this money anyway, so why don't I just give you $500 if you're gone by Friday and the place is clean? $500 cash. And then the tenants actually, most of the time that are problems, will take you up on that offer.
Wow.
Because it's a win-win.
Yeah.
They're happy to get a bunch of money. They're going to be out anyway in 3 weeks without an eviction. So why not take the money and leave? So I'd say probably half the time we do that, it works. The other half of the time we are forced to either evict or they just leave without taking the money, which is always weird to me.
Yeah.
Like they're like, no, I won't take the money. And then they leave anyway, like a week later. And I'm like, why didn't you just take the money? Like I was trying to help you. Anyway.
Well, that's kind of interesting how,
I never understand that.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Okay. And so, do you think that people can start with, get into real estate with no money down?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can. It's not so much that there's no money involved as it is, it's not your money. You just got to find a creative way. So the easiest way I tell people is, like, if people say you can't do no money down, I'm like, well, can you just find a partner? If you found a partner who had money and you didn't have money, do you think you could buy a deal? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, I guess so. That makes sense. Okay, well, then there's an easy way to do it. And that's how I did it for a long time. When I had no money to invest, I would just find people who had some money and I'd say, hey, I'll do all the work. I'll go do all the struggle. I'll clean up the garbage inside the property. You just front the money. And people are happy to do that because everyone wants to be in real estate, but nobody wants to hustle.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, if you've got hustle, everybody will give you money to buy deals. It's just you gotta find the right people and you gotta network. And once you find them, I mean, I would say 50%, so half of a great deal is better than 100% of nothing. Like if you're like, no, I'm not going to partner because I don't want to lose my money, but then you don't do anything. Well, what was the point of doing it? So I'd rather have 50% any day as long as I'm getting deals done.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of partnerships.
That's okay. No, that's interesting. In the beginning, did you found, I guess in the beginning you also partnered with people. Is that correct?
I did. I mean, the first few deals I didn't. I used just lenders that would lend on them. But I soon found that using partners was easier, especially for rentals. when I had a job and I had a little bit of income coming in, it was easy to go to a bank and get a loan. Then I didn't need a partner. But as soon as I left my job, no bank wants to give a loan anymore. They're like, well, that guy's unemployed. He's probably homeless. So like they don't want to give a loan. But when I bring in a partner and say, hey, no, my partner's Bob. Can we get a loan together? Then they're like, oh, sure. Bob's rich. He'll be fine. And so I use partners. Sometimes even the partners don't even put money into a deal. I just use them as, hey, will you just help me get this mortgage? And so I did that for a number of years as well.
Wow, that's no, that's good. The best Mark Cuban says the best equity is sweat equity.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I guess in your instance, yeah, sweat equity all the way.
Yeah, yep.
So when you started, who did you pitch to? Like who did you say, oh, I'll do all the work and
Mhm.
you just front the money? Like, did you do that to friends and family, or were they,
Yeah.
I guess, accredited investors? Like, who did
Yeah,
you?
at the beginning, it was all family and friends. I mean, my very first partner ever was my dad, and that came by accident. I
Huh.
did a deal and I tried to fix and flip it, so sell it, and then the market crashed and I couldn't sell it. And I was like, what do I do? I gotta do something with this property. And uh, so I called my dad and said, hey, you've got a good credit, you got a good income, good job, and I can't get a mortgage. Can we partner on this deal together? I'll just, I'll add you to the loan and then we'll refinance it. And he said, sure. So that was my very first time. Later, I got some friends from church, and they helped me with it. And
Hmm.
now I meet people online. I meet people at networking clubs and just wherever I can find people. And I believe it's important to become friendly or friends with a person and then do business. Like I don't like partnering with people that I'm not friends with, because like I got to know someone's character and I got to know what their work ethic and I got to know what they're in it for. Because it's different when you're lending or borrowing money from someone. Sure, you don't really have to know that much about them, but when you're partnering, I mean,
Mm,
you're basically married to them for a number of years. So I want to
that's
know
a
who I'm
great
getting
point.
involved with.
Yeah. Have you ever had any stories of any business partnerships going south?
Um, I mean, not really. Not. I mean, like not of my own. I mean, yes, it's definitely a danger. Partners can cause problems. But I've been pretty lucky with all my partners, and maybe it's just because again, like I know who they are, and I know what they want. I think when you're looking for a partner, you got to find somebody who has similar goals as you, not just similar work ethic or whatever, but like
Mm,
if you partner with somebody, then you find out, well, they are actually not in this for the long game. They just want to make some quick money, but I'm in it for the long game. Well, now we got a difference of opinion, and every decision has a different, there's a lot of butting heads and conflict. So my partners generally, everybody I partner with is in this for the long haul. We don't need money now. We're not desperately broke, but we're trying to make a good retirement 10 years from now or 15 years from now,
mm,
so we can all build wealth over time. And everyone's okay with that. So when we have a decision to make, like, oh, should we replace all these windows? It's going to be kind of expensive. Well, is it good for the long term? Yeah, it is. Okay, so let's replace the windows, or let's get a strategy for doing that. Things like that.
yeah, you're definitely in it for the long haul.
Yeah, like, and I want to, the great thing about real estate is that the longer you're in it, one, the easier it becomes, and the greater wealth you build, and it's very rapid. I'll give you an example. Let's just say you own a house, and every month you're making in profit or cash flow, it's like the profit from each month, you're making $200. Well, that's $200, whatever. But over time, rents tend to go up. They almost
Mm,
always do, where they go up, and so I might only be making 200 a month right now, but next year I might be making 220 and then 250 and then 275. But over the years, I get more and more efficient on how I manage them. I learn how to manage better. I maybe even hire property managers to take after it. So it gets easier
mm,
and easier. So my income's going up. And then someday the mortgage, the loan that I got on the property gets paid off. Now I might have been paying $1,000 a month on that loan. And all of a sudden now I'm paying nothing. So now my 200 a month, which has now climbed to let's say 300 or 400 a month, jumps up to like 1,400 a month during retirement. And it's like, so you can get good income right now. So to go back to those numbers, let's say you're getting $200 a month in cash flow on one property.
mhm,
Well, if you had 20 of them, now you're making $4,000 a month in income. Now that's a good living. That's the average wage of most Americans is $4,000 a month. So all of a sudden now I have 20 of them and I'm making 4,000 a month. That's pretty good. But then someday that mortgages get paid off, maybe after 10,
mm.
15, 20 years. And now I'm not making 4,000. Now I'm making 15, 20,000 a month
Yeah, it's all
in
profit.
income. Yeah, it's all like it's way better. And so again, that's what I like about real estate is that over time it just gets better and better and better. It's always getting better. and easier.
Yeah, but I guess during times of recession, do rents also dip as well?
They can, especially in areas that are really hot, that go up really fast. Like right now, if areas like Denver or Seattle, big cities, the rents tend to rise and then they can drop. And so, if I was in a bigger area that had like really expensive rents, I would definitely want a cushion for that.
Mm,
They don't generally drop that much. Rents are generally, I mean, it's a supply and demand. So yeah, they could go up and down a little bit, but typically they don't. Usually values of properties drop a lot more than rents do. That said, where I live, it's pretty low income. I mean, our average rent here is like $600 a month. So it's not going to drop much more. I mean, even a minimum wage employee could earn enough to pay rent here. So I don't worry too much about rent dropping, but there's definitely, I want to cushion a little bit on any deal just in case.
okay, no, that's good. Uh, for yourself, do you think that there's always a deal to be found, in regardless of the season of the market? So if it's if you think it's starting to if it's a hot market, or if it's I guess in a recession, do you think there's always a deal to be found?
I do. I mean, it definitely is easy. Certain things are easier in different markets. I think but I mean, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when the market was just really crappy and there was tons of foreclosures, I mean, every house was a good deal pretty much. I mean, they were everywhere, right? Like anything I could buy was like, oh, that's a good deal. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. Today, it's a lot harder to find them, but you still can. In fact, today we're seeing in the U.S. the hottest real estate market we've ever seen. But I'm still buying stuff. In fact, I'm buying more nowadays than I probably was back in 2008, 9, 10.
Mm,
I've just gotten better at it. And so, yeah, in a good market, you just got to be smarter than everyone else.
yeah.
And then when the market gets crappy again, it's going to be great, even better.
Okay. And how do you find deals? Like, is there a website that you go to? I think Grant Cardone goes on LoopNet.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want larger properties like Grant does, LoopNet is a good site. And I do go there for things like mobile home parks. I'm looking for a mobile home park right now. Now, if the problem with LoopNet is that a lot of those deals are picked over and there's not a lot of good ones there for bigger properties, but still, I'll check there. I look at a lot of stuff on the MLS. Still, the MLS is what basically where all the real estate agents put their listings. It's really competitive and it's hard to find good deals there, but there's so many there. There's so many houses for sale that usually I can pick through and find some decent ones. And so I look for things like 2-bedroom houses, which are not very ideal for me in my area because people don't like to rent 2-bedroom houses very much where I live.
Hmm.
But I look for 2-bedroom houses that are kind of large because I usually, if it's a larger 2-bedroom, I can make a 3rd bedroom out of it. So
Mm,
I look for that hidden potential, or maybe there's a basement that could be converted into a family room or another bedroom or an attic that can be converted. So I look for a lot of hidden potential on the MLS.
mm,
But I also do things like some people, I buy houses that they contact me through my website, and other ones, just different ways. There's a lot of different ways to find deals.
okay. And for yourself, do you like to stay locally, or do you like to look around all of the U.S. or maybe even internationally? So, when you look for deals, where do you look?
Yeah. Personally, I look local for small stuff, but for bigger stuff, like I'm looking for this mobile home park, I'll look anywhere. But I like the small stuff is just, it's there's too many little things that can go wrong if I'm not local, and I feel like it's hard to manage that
Mm,
from a long distance. Like somebody comes over and says, "Yeah, it looks like your water heater's shot. I got to replace that." Like if it's 1,000 miles away, like I don't know any plumbers over there. I don't know anybody that can come fix that, and so like everything gets a little more complicated. But on a big deal, those things are kind of worked out already. Like on a big deal, you're going to have a manager there that's going to take care of it. So that's how I look at it. Anything over 5 units, I would probably look farther away. But under
mm.
5 units, I want to probably look close.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, because you want to manage it yourself and be in charge
Yeah.
of it. No,
Yep.
that's a good point. And so when people start real estate, would you suggest? I mean, this is what Grant Cardone says. Like you should always just start in your own neighborhood and look at the area or neighborhood, and then yeah, but just start locally before going anywhere else.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a good idea to understand your local market because you can become rich in real estate in every single market in the world. Like I said earlier, there's always somebody doing it. So find that person and find out what works in your market. Become an expert at that. That way you're closer. It's easier. And if you really can't do it in your market, the kind of strategy you want to do, like let's say you really want to do low income rental houses. Well, if you live in San Francisco, that's probably not going to happen. Everything's expensive there.
Yeah.
So if you really have a strategy you want to do and it doesn't work in your market, then sure, look outside your market. But even then, I wouldn't say fly across the country. I would advise people to look an hour away, 2 hours away, 3 hours away. Like do something that you could drive to if you needed to in case of an emergency.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess people, like, what would your advice be for people who live in bigger cities where it's a little bit more expensive to purchase, real estate? Example, in New York City or LA, I guess San Francisco, as you said. I mean, it seems that those cities are pretty, it's expensive to acquire real estate.
It is,
what are your
yeah.
thoughts on that? I mean, how would you approach it if you were just beginning?
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes to, like I said earlier, I mean, people are getting rich in those markets. So the question is how, and if you want to learn, then like there's ways to do it. For example, if I lived in LA right now, I would probably be looking into things like vacation rentals. Could I buy a property and rent it out by the night to out of town tourists? Or because then typically I'm going to get like maybe 100 or 200, let's say $200 a night on a property. I rent it 20 nights a month. That's $4,000 a month, where now it makes the mortgage payment just fine, and then I make a bunch of cash flow. So if I lived in an expensive market, I would look for a strategy that worked there. Or again, like if you live in San Francisco, it's very expensive. An hour away is Sacramento, 10 times cheaper. Or if you live in New York City, that's expensive. But 30 minutes north of New York, you can buy a house for $120,000. So people are they get stuck in their own little tiny cities and they're like, well, everything's so expensive. Well, get in your car and drive. Like that's why we have cars, so you can drive. So like there are places to invest, or like New Jersey, you can buy a house for $100,000 or $200,000 in some areas. So yeah, get outside the city a little bit and you'll find low price neighborhoods. Within a 2-hour drive of every city in America and probably the world, you can find prices that make sense if that's what you need to do.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So for yourself, when you rent out your properties, how long does it usually take to find a tenant, or what is the occupancy percent, I guess?
Sure. Yeah, we're really proactive about getting our units rented, so it's not very long. I mean, we rarely have something vacant more than a week. And if we are, it's like right now we have one that's been sitting empty for 3 weeks. And I talked to my wife about it and she said, yeah, I think the price is just too high. So we're dropping our price quickly to make sure we get it rented quickly. I hate vacancy. I hate properties sitting empty. So I think when I run numbers, I usually consider like 95 to 98% occupied most of the time.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, we rarely have vacancies. Granted, the market's really good right now. A lot of tenants are looking for places and it's easy. But even if it wasn't, like, most property managers out there will go and maybe put their ad up on Zillow, let's say for a rental. Or maybe if they're good, they'll put it on Craigslist. When we have a vacancy, we put a bunch of signs all down the street. We go and put an ad on Craigslist, on Zillow, on Realtor, on Trulia, on Redfin. I mean, we'll do whatever we can. We'll put them everywhere. We'll go on Facebook. We'll tell all the existing tenants, hey, everybody, if you want to earn $100, just send us, your friend, and we'll rent to them. So like we are very proactive in getting our units filled, and people who tend to get their units filled way faster.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about renting through Airbnb?
Yes, and I do one right now. I have one Airbnb, and it's okay. It makes really good income, but it takes a lot of work. And so I'm balancing that in my head whether or not I want to do more of that, because it takes a fair amount of talking with the tenants or the people that are staying there and answering questions, and everyone's got problems, and dealing with cleaners coming in every few days to clean it. I think there's ways to simplify it, and I'm probably not doing a very good job of it. And there's probably systems that I could have incorporated that I'm just not. But I do think that's a very powerful strategy right now.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have a friend who does pretty much rentals through Airbnb. And, well, he doesn't own the properties himself. He kind of like sublets them out. So, and he's doing well on that. So. Yeah,
I know a few people doing that too, and it can be really powerful. The downside is if you get, if the person you're renting from finds out that you're doing it and they don't like that, they can get mad. They can put an eviction on your record. They can, so I always just advise, try to stay within the laws. I mean, stay within, the rules. Don't try to get around something. But there a lot of landlords wouldn't care as long as you're paying the rent. What do they care what you're doing?
Absolutely, yeah,
So yeah, so
absolutely,
they just want to make sure the rent's getting paid. And if you can guarantee it, then a lot of landlords are just open to that.
yeah. Great. And just before we wrap up, what are, I guess, three mistakes that you have made that you wish you haven't made before, or what are three things that you wish you had known throughout your
Sure.
real estate investing career?
Sure. Number one is to treat it like a business, not a hobby. And so
Mm,
it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go out and buy something now. And yeah, maybe I'll buy something now. It's like how does a business owner attract leads? Like they go out there and they have a process or a system for attracting leads, and then they work that system. Or how does, for example, I'm going to go call 10 real estate agents every week and tell them what I'm looking for. Now that's a business.
mm,
But if it's like, well, I'm just waiting for the right deal to come, that's a hobby. So that's the first thing. Second thing is learn how to analyze a deal really well. I wasn't very good at analyzing when I started. I'd be like, well, that's a cheap house. It must be a good deal. That never works out very well. And yeah, I would say third is I wish I would have done a better job of networking with smart people. Like I just kind of figured out a lot of stuff and made a lot of mistakes. I wish I would have instead learned from other people's mistakes. I think I would have learned a lot more, and I think I would have been better off.
Yeah, no, your book just talks about it, it's I love your book because it's a great manual on real estate investing. It just goes through every little thing that you can possibly think of with regards
Well,
to
thank
real
you.
estate. So it's just like when you're talking about the people that you need to do a deal. It's just like you have your accountant, the real estate agent, and then you're also talking about whether you should have your real estate license or not. You just talk about so many different things that I guess ordinary people wouldn't think about.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah. So, how can people connect with you, or where
Sure.
can they find your book?
Yeah, I mean, the book's on Amazon. Just type in rental property investing or Brandon Turner. You'll find it either way. I'm on biggerpockets.com all the time. Like you said, I'm one of the VPs over there. And yeah, I mean, my Instagram, that's my favorite place to hang out. I love Instagram.
Instagram.
So my Instagram handle is at Beardy Brandon, Beardy, like beard with a Y, Beardy Brandon.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Brandon, for having this interview.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, so for everyone watching, there will be a link down below to where you can connect with Brandon. All right, well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.